There is a particular kind of quiet that settles over a city in winter, especially one as vast and historic as St. Petersburg. It isn't the absence of sound, but a softening of it. Footsteps become muted by snow, voices fade more quickly into the cold air, and even the river seems to slow its breathing beneath layers of ice. Valentina always noticed this kind of quiet most when she was alone. The morning Igor left for Munich began before dawn. The apartment lights glowed warmly against the darkness outside. High above the Neva River, from the window, the city looked unreal, like a painting brushed in pale blues and golds. Igor moved efficiently the way he always did before a work trip. Shirt folded, documents checked twice, phone charging beside his passport. He had traveled many times before, but each departure still carried a faint weight. An unspoken awareness of absence waiting on the other side. Valentina watched him from the kitchen doorway, holding a mug of tea she had barely touched. She smiled, offered small reminders he didn't need, and listened as he spoke about meetings, schedules, and the cold weather in Munich as if she hadn't lived through countless winters herself. Between them moved Frost, their golden white shepherd, alert and quietly anxious. He sensed change long before it happened. When the door finally closed behind Igor, the apartment exhaled. The sound lingered longer than it should have, echoing down the hallway and settling into the corners of the rooms. Valentina stood still for a moment, hand resting on the door, as if expecting it to open again. Frost sat beside her, ears forward, waiting. It's just us now, she said softly, though she wasn't sure if she was speaking to the dog or to herself. The first day always felt the strangest. Routines existed, but they felt slightly misaligned, like furniture moved an inch out of place. Valentina went through the motions of her morning, cleaning already clean surfaces, straightening cushions that didn't need it. Frost followed her from room to room, never intrusive, just present. His paws made soft sounds against the floor, grounding her in the physical world when her thoughts drifted too far. Outside, the city shimmered under a thin layer of snow. Valentina bundled herself in her coat, clipped Frost's leash, and stepped into the cold. The air was sharp but clean, the kind that filled the lungs and cleared the mind. They walked along familiar streets, past buildings that had witnessed centuries of departures and returns. Frost moved confidently, nose lifted, attentive to every sound and scent. Valentina matched her pace to his, finding comfort in the rhythm of their steps. As the days passed, solitude took on a gentler shape. Valentina discovered that being alone didn't always mean feeling lonely. Mornings began with quiet breakfasts by the window, watching the city wake slowly beneath a pale sky. Frost lay nearby, his head resting on his paws, eyes following her with calm devotion. She spoke to him often, narrating small details of her day, her voice filling spaces that might otherwise feel too empty. Evenings were the hardest. As darkness fell early, the apartment lights reflected back at her from the glass, creating a double image of warmth inside and cold beyond. Valentina cooked simple meals, setting one place at the table instead of two. Frost sat patiently nearby, tail thumping softly whenever she glanced his way. After dinner, she would sit on the couch, wrapped in a blanket, scrolling through messages from Igor. His words were affectionate but brief, filled with details of meetings and unfamiliar streets. She could sense his exhaustion between the lines. At night, the apartment creaked and sighed in the way buildings do when temperatures drop. Valentina sometimes woke to the sound of the wind, disoriented for a moment before remembering she was alone. Frost always slept nearby, a warm, steady presence. When she stirred, he lifted his head slightly, eyes meeting hers in the dim light, as if silently asking whether she was all right. She always was. After that dot asterisk one evening, snow began to fall heavily, transforming the city into something almost unreal. Valentina stood by the window for a long time, watching the flakes drift down in thick, unhurried patterns. The lights along the river blurred into soft halos. It was beautiful, and the beauty made her ache. She thought about Igor, about how he would have loved this view, how they would have stood together, sharing quiet observations, leaning into each other's warmth. Asterisk frost pressed against her leg, sensing the shift in her mood. She knelt and buried her fingers in his thick fur, breathing in the familiar scent of him. There was something grounding about the physicality of it, about the certainty that this creature was here, now unwavering. Loyalty, she realized, wasn't loud. It didn't announce itself. It simply stayed. Asterisk, their walks became longer as the days went on. Valentina explored parts of the city she usually passed by without noticing. Small parks dusted with snow, quiet courtyards hidden between buildings, frozen canals reflecting the pale sky. Frost seemed to know when she needed to keep moving and when she needed to stop. Sometimes they stood still for minutes at a time, just watching the world exist around them. Asterisk. There were moments of unexpected joy. Frost chasing snowflakes with puppy-like enthusiasm despite his age. A stranger smiling at them and passing. The sound of distant music drifting from an open window. Valentina began to understand that solitude could be layered, that it didn't have to be empty. It could be reflective, even healing. Asterisk, one afternoon, she received a message from Igor saying he would be delayed, returning by a day. The news settled heavily in her chest, not because of disappointment, but because it reminded her how much she missed him. She sat quietly for a long time, Frost said, resting on her knee, his breathing slow and even. In that stillness, she allowed herself to feel the absence fully instead of pushing it aside. The sadness didn't overwhelm her. It simply existed, acknowledged and accepted. Asterisk, that night, she dreamed of summer, of warm evenings by the river, of laughter echoing through open windows, of frost lying in patches of sunlight. When she woke, the contrast with the dark winter morning was stark, but it didn't feel unbearable. She made tea, watched the sky lighten, and felt a quiet resilience settle within her. Asterisk, the final days of Igor's trip arrived almost unexpectedly. Valentina noticed how accustomed she had become to the rhythm of her days with Frost. The apartment no longer felt too large. The silence no longer pressed in. She wondered if this was what independence truly felt like, not isolation, but self-sufficiency paired with connection in unexpected forms. Asterisk, on the morning Igor was due to return, Valentina cleaned the apartment with a different energy. Not out of habit, but anticipation. Frost sensed it too, pacing slightly, ears alert, as if the air itself carried news. Valentina checked the clock more often than she cared to admit. Asterisk, when the door finally opened,